first question is,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I'm concerned, Y Combinator has financially supported many already well-known companies such as Scribd, Airbnb, Reddit, Dropbox, and at that point they had more or less clear business idea. Am I right?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes,
I think some
okay.
of them have changed a lot since they started, but yeah, some of them have had the same idea from the beginning.
Okay, so could you recall any extraordinary, less clear startups that the fund eventually decided to invest in?
You mean when they changed the idea, or
No, maybe it were a little bit challenging for you, and they were not that clear with their idea, but you decided to take upon it.
I think so. This is before my time at Y Combinator, but Airbnb is a good case of that. So when Airbnb was started, it was basically the word Airbnb comes from air bed and breakfast. So people were basically renting out airbeds on their apartments, their own apartments, and they were home when they were renting out. So they're basically just hosting someone in their home. And when Airbnb pitched to Y Combinator in 2008, they basically were basically proposing that would be what their business was going to be. They were offering people to sleep on airbeds in your homes. Then along the way, when they're running the company, they learned that people prefer to sleep on beds, and people prefer to actually sometimes rent the entire house, and the host doesn't have to be home. And so the company switched, like kind of transformed from just to offering airbeds when someone's home to offering the entire apartments. And I joined Airbnb later, but the company today, a big majority of the business is for people renting out the apartment, the entire apartment. People are not home. So that's not a company where the things have changed dramatically. When the founders first pitched to Y Combinator, this is a famous stories online where like most of the investors that Airbnb spoke to actually said no because they didn't understand what the business was. They were like kind of scared of it or thought it was weird that you were staying in someone else's apartment. So it wasn't until after Y Combinator, when Airbnb started making revenue and they had a couple of $1,000s in revenue each month, that they actually raised real funding from investors. But for the first entire year before Y Combinator, every single investor that Airbnb spoke to said no. So the many good investors had a chance to invest in Airbnb, but they said no.
Very interesting information.
Yeah.
And well, the next question is, there are some trends among the startups, right? And not that long ago, for example, IT startups were on the top, and were the most popular and more frequent ones.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's more about financial and educational startups. Could you somehow forecast the future trends and maybe the essential basics that startups should have for you to invest in them?
Yeah, so we don't care too much about trends. Basically don't care about trends at all. I think the most important trend is that you should build for your customers. You should talk to your users. The more you talk and understand what your users want from your product, the better the product will ultimately become. So that is kind of unrelated of any trends that are going on right now. In terms of the companies that people are building, I think that most of the services, if not all of the things that we have in Silicon Valley, most of the people in the world will also have. Because the number of people that have mobile phones and computers around the world, you should expect that pretty much everything that are kind of new or hyped at some point, if it becomes successful, it'll be something for the entire world. So in the last batch, there were companies from India building financial services for Indian market that we saw in the US market 2 or 3 years ago. And I think in China, they're even ahead of the US market. So I think regardless of trends, people are building great companies, great products all around the world. And they're doing that based on just talking and listening to customers. And the better you do that, then the better services you will build.
So can we say that customer approach is a key?
Absolutely. Talking to your customers is the most important thing that you can do. Like if you start a company, measuring what you're doing to see that you're making progress, talking to customers to make sure they like what you're doing, those are some of the absolute most important things in the very early days when you start a company.
Thank you. And last but not least, do you have your own personal success formula for startups?
A successful startup is a combination of things that needs to go right. It needs to be a great founder, it needs to be a great idea that somehow finds a great market and people love the customers. And it's hard to get all of those things right. If all those things right, then you have like an enormous company. There are some things that we've seen in Y Combinator as trends that we recommend entrepreneurs to do to lower the risk of failing along the way. And some of those things are have technical co-founders. So if you're starting a company, you don't have your technical co-founders, then it's harder, because most new products are technical in some way. It's hard to actually build the products if none of you are technical. The other advice would be to have more than one co-founder. One co-founder makes things really hard. So ideally two or more is what we recommend. And that's not something that we say you have to do, but we've seen in the companies that have that, they're better at overcoming some of the challenges later on. The third one would be to launch early. Launch earlier than you think. If you're uncomfortable with your launch, you're launching at the right time, because then you're getting the kind of feedback that you need to get from your customers. It's much more likely you will fail if you launch too late than if you launch too early. So you should launch when you feel uncomfortably early, and then you should launch and then get the feedback from your customers. Once you've launched, there are people using your product every day, hopefully, which means that you're going to have to serve them and make the things better every single time. And if not, they'll stop using it. So they have to have a lot of pressure in making the product better. Then another piece of feedback would be to kind of show progress and make progress. That some of the most successful companies and successful entrepreneurs are the ones that are determined to just like keep building the product and keep showing progress, regardless of outside investors or Y Combinator or anything else. The best thing is just keeping your customers and the people you're building for in mind, and kind of ignore the pressure and expectations from everyone else, because those things doesn't matter anyway.